Hi guys. So in today's vlog, we'll be touching on premier banking in Singapore. So actually, I have a lot of friends who have asked me, what's the difference between premier banking as personal banking, as compared to things like private banking. So today I'll shed some light on this particular topic. Yeah, so maybe let's just dive right into it. So first of all, there are three main tiers in banking. You have personal banking, which some people call it mass banking as well. These are essentially for the majority of mass market customers. Most people start off with a POSB Kids account, and then you move on to the next tier, which is premier banking, or some banks call it privileged banking, priority banking, or preferred banking. These are all synonymous terms that essentially mean the same thing. So the difference between premier banking as compared to mass banking essentially means that you have to maintain a certain amount of money with this particular bank in order to be a premier banking customer. So exactly how much you have to have in each of these accounts, I will shed some light on that today. But before going more in depth into premier banking, you also have this thing called private banking. Right? Private banking is essentially the pinnacle where the amount of money, or they call it AUM, assets under management, the amount of AUM you have to set aside with the bank is much higher, is significantly higher as compared to a premier banking customer. Right, so let me just dive right into premier banking, because I guess this is what the entire vlog is going to be about, right? So the most common question is, so how do you be a premier banking customer? So if you want to be a premier banking customer in Singapore, you have to set aside a certain amount of money with the bank. So I've consolidated a list of premier banks in Singapore for you guys to reference, so take a look. So yes, as you can see, most premier banks require you to have a minimum AUM of between 200,000 to 350,000, with City Priority being the odd one out. But of course, with a much lower AUM, the perks are much more basic as well. So AUM, like I said, assets under management, essentially refers to the amount of money you have with the bank. You have to have at least 350,000 spare cash, because the way premier banking works is that if you fall below a certain amount, let's say the minimum AUM of 350,000 with, let's say, DBS Treasures, if it falls below 350,000, they have the right to revoke you of your premier banking status. Right, so of course they can be flexible sometimes. If you fall short of 20,000-30,000 for a couple of months, maybe 2-3 months, from 350,000 you drop to 320,000, but the remaining months of the year you do increase your AUM in treasures back to the minimum required amount of 350,000, then it's unlikely that they will revoke your rights as a premier banking client just because you fell short of a couple of months. But of course, if for extended periods of time, if the minimum required AUM is 350,000 and you fall short to maybe 100,000, 50,000 for 8 months, 9 months, then it is very likely that they will revoke your status at the end of the year. Right, do take note though, for certain banks, they consider the investments that you have with them as AUM. So it doesn't have to necessarily be cash. Sometimes they consider unit trusts. If you have $100,000 worth of unit trust with them, then you can just have 250,000 in a treasures account. Sometimes they even consider fixed Ds as AUM as well. So this is something that differs from bank to bank. Right, so the next common question when it comes to premier banking is, what are the perks of a premier banking customer? Because if I'm going to be parking 200 to 350,000 aside an account that I am not allowed, or I am strongly discouraged to withdraw from, then it better come with some decent perks, right? So the first perk is priority queuing, right? Sometimes you go to a bank, the queues are very long. You actually can go straight to the private counter. The second perk is you get a higher tier credit card, right? So for myself, I am a premier banking customer of OCBC. So initially, before I upgraded to a premier banking customer, I was already using their OCBC Voyage credit card, which is why I even decided to upgrade to the premier banking status, because I realized that perks are much better. So this is the card that I was initially using, right? And after the upgrading to premier banking, they changed my Voyage card to the premier banking Voyage card. So this credit card has much higher miles per dollar, MPD. My entry level Voyage only gives 1.3 miles per dollar, and my premier banking Voyage gives me 1.6 miles per dollar. So that 0.3 extra miles per dollar is essentially worth around, I think, 22-23% more. And if I'm going to be spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, that 22-23% is actually going to add up over time, right? So yeah. Right. So the third perk is actually higher interest rates, and it's not only applicable to high yield savings accounts, it's also applicable to equity loans, mortgage loans, it's also applicable to fixed deposits. So generally, they give you slightly higher interest rates than the standard mass banking client. So for example, I'm currently using OCBC's Premier Dividends account, and as of today is 29th November, I believe I'm currently getting around 3.3 plus percent per annum, which is pretty decent considering that they essentially don't have that many requirements. Because if you look at DBS multiplier, a lot of high yield savings accounts require you to hit a lot of criteria in order for you to qualify for that maybe 4%. Yeah, so for the Premier Dividends account, all I need to do is credit $2,000 a month into this TD account. It's essentially that and not withdrawing. So if I just fulfill these two criteria, which is not that hard, I essentially get 3.3% per annum. Of course, they will credit you the interest on a monthly basis, so it fluctuates lah. So of course, like I said, this has to be spare cash because you don't want to, for myself, OCBC Premier Banking only requires 200,000 AUM as compared to a lot of other Premier banks. So for myself, I mean, initially I was already using the standard Voyage card, which is why I decided to upgrade to Premier Banking status in order to get that. I mean, of course, it's also for the perks that comes with the PB status, but as well as the increased miles per dollar. But why I say it has to be spare cash is because if I'm going to put my entire savings into this Premier Dividends account just to hit the minimum 200,000, then it doesn't really make sense because I'm going to constantly withdraw from this bank account to pay my bills, pay my expenses, pay this and that. And in withdrawing, I essentially will be losing out on the high dividend yields that they are offering. So like I said, this, be it 200,000 or 350,000, it should typically be spare cash that you won't withdraw for the next 1 to 2 years, because like I said, the moment you withdraw, you lose out on the high yields that they are currently offering. Okay, so the fourth perk of being a Premier Banking client is that you get your own dedicated RM or relationship manager. So your RM essentially manages your investment portfolios. They basically give you advice, where you should put your money, what instruments you should put your money in. And even for myself, yes, while I do my own personal investments, my RM still does recommend me certain asset classes or instruments that I personally cannot buy into on my own, and I definitely need the help of an RM. So things like structured deposits, equity-linked notes, these are things that I cannot personally buy it as a retail investor. I need to go through a bank. So my RM recently, she was just recommending me a particular structured deposit that is minimally 200,000. It was offering something like a guaranteed 3 or 3.5% per annum. Lock-in period was for 2 years, and the variable non-guaranteed bonus could go up to 17% per annum. So potentially you could be making 34% in 2 years. And the good thing is that 200,000 is capital guaranteed, and they even guarantee you that 3 to 3.5% per annum yield. So worst come to worst, you just get 3.5% per annum for 2 years. The potential upsides are up to 17% per year. Of course, it's non-guaranteed, but I mean, it's still better than a lot of other asset classes out there. Okay, so the fifth perk is getting preferential rates for loans. As a Premier Banking customer, you tend to get lower interest rates on certain loans. You also get flexible tenures, and sometimes you actually are able to loan an even higher amount than a mass banking customer would, because you will be deemed to be of a lower risk, since you already have the capital to be a Premier Banking customer to begin with. And sixth of all, for myself, it's not that big of a perk, but it's still one of the perks. You get better FX rates, because for frequent travelers, I think you would be changing your money a lot. So for frequent travelers, this is a very neat perk that you would definitely want to utilize, because you get much better rates as compared to if you were to go out to the money changer at Ang Mo Kio or Yishun. So these are the main perks of being a Premier Banking customer. Oh, and not that it matters that much, but it just came to my mind. They actually give you a different user interface when you log into iBanking. So I will put a screenshot somewhere here. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a small touch, but something that it will make you go, wow, they actually bothered to put in the effort to give Premier Banking customers a different UI, a different interface. It's always the small things that add up to your experience of being a PB customer. So and on that note of things that don't matter that much, you also get access to the Premier Banking lounges, where you can go for coffee or tea. You can do your work there, you can bring clients there. It's really up to you, but these are all free of charge. Just an additional small perk of being a PB customer. Right, so that's pretty much it. And just to give you guys a rough idea of what private banking's minimum required AUMs are like, right? Just to show you that difference in being a private banking customer as compared to a premier banking customer, I've also consolidated a list of the minimum required AUMs, which I'll flash on screen now. So you can see that there's a stark difference between being a premier banking customer. You only need 200 to 350,000 AUM, as compared to in private banking where you need 1 to 5 million AUM. So yeah, that is a really big difference. I will not touch so much on private banking today because that's not the whole point of the vlog, but let me know if this is something that you guys are interested in. Then I guess I just have to go and become a private banking customer just to let you guys know what the perks and what the experiences are. Okay, so anyway, with that being said, I hope they shed some light on this particular topic that's not really talked about in Singapore. Please feel free to ask me any questions if you guys have any that I might have missed out on. And yeah, it's a pretty short vlog, but I'll see you in the next one. Bye.